All right, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the University of Michigan's pre-departure orientation. My name is Scott Manley, and before we all introduce ourselves to you, I just want to make a note that this session is being recorded, and we will post the presentation and the recording on our website. Closed captioning is also available if needed. Again, my name is Scott Manley, and welcome to our pre-departure orientation. We have a lot of information to get through today, so the very beginning will be as brief as possible so that you can get as much information as possible for you to be successful when you arrive. One quick note before we begin introductions. We do know that a lot of you have questions about the new guidance from the federal government. We're going to ask you to refrain from asking a lot of immigration questions until we get to the immigration section. I will go over best case scenario first. So if you're able to get your visa and arrive on campus, what are you going to have to do? And then we'll take some time and we'll talk about how the new guidance impacts new students coming to campus and what are the alternatives if you're not able to get here. So hopefully by the end of that immigration section, we'll have answered most of your questions. And if we can get through this, then we'll have time at the end for you to be able to ask questions, okay? So my name is Scott Manley. I'm the Assistant Director for International Student and Scholar Services. My pronouns are he, him, his. And a little bit about myself. I'm originally born in Michigan. I've lived most of my life in Michigan. But the times that I have not lived my life in Michigan, I've lived for about a year in Europe as a student, and I lived for 3 years in Japan. I've been at the University of Michigan now almost 14 years, and I've been in international education for over 15 years. So I will now let Kelly Nelson introduce herself to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Nelson. I use she, her pronouns, and I am on the Global Engagement and Education Abroad team in the International Center. And we are a team that works to plan programs and events for international students. So we hope that when you join us in the fall or in the winter semester, we'll be able to meet you at one of our events. A little bit about me. I am also born and raised in the state of Michigan. As an undergraduate student, though, I also studied abroad. I lived for 1 year in Freiburg, Germany, and then in between undergrad and graduate school, I returned to Germany to participate in the Fulbright program as an English teaching assistant. I've worked at the International Center a couple times, in total around 10 years. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk with you about pre-departure.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Wagner, the other Kelly at the International Center. I go by she, her pronouns. I am a program manager on the Global Engagement and Education Abroad team, and I've been working at the International Center for about 3 years. Internationally, I've lived abroad in Austria, and I've traveled to nearly 20 countries, just for reasons of fun. And at the IC, I work on orientation programming and cultural events throughout the year. And so I look forward to seeing many of you virtually or in person during some of our many events that we host for you all. Just to get started, I wanted to run a quick poll just to see where everyone is joining us from today. All right, we'll give everyone about 5 more seconds to get their vote in. All right, sorry if you didn't get a chance to answer, but it looks like the majority of folks today are joining us from Asia, with a few of them from Europe and North America. So welcome everyone. We're really excited to have you all on the call today. As Scott mentioned, if you have any questions about immigration, we ask that you hold them until we get to the immigration section, since we're probably going to answer most of your questions. But there is a Q&A feature where you can put questions in. Our colleagues, Jake and Kate, are also on the call, and they'll be answering those questions as soon as they can. But again, try to hold off on the immigration questions until we get to that section. So right now, I'm going to turn it back over to Scott.
So today we're gonna focus on really three main topics. The first topic will be campus life and support. This will be a little bit about social and academic aspects, from banking to classroom expectations, to help you succeed once you arrive. The second section is going to be about immigration. So we're going to talk a little bit about visas. We're going to talk about late arrivals. We're going to talk about deferrals, and we're going to talk specifically about how the new guidance potentially affects new students coming to campus this fall, and potentially, if they're not able to come this fall, winter semester, or potentially even next fall. The final section we're going to talk about is orientation and beyond. What we are able to offer you to help you prepare when you initially arrive on campus and beyond. So the resources and the programming that we will have available to you that will help you adjust to life at U of M and also be successful academically, socially while you're here. At the end, we hope to have some time for questions and answers. If we do not answer the questions that you have during the entire presentation. As you are aware, the University of Michigan is a very large public institution. It's a tier 1 research institution within the US. And we have students from all over the world. So when you look at our combination of international students and scholars, we have over 10,000 international students and scholars at the University of Michigan in a given year. These scholars and students are from more than 130 countries. And if you're really into statistics, the Open Doors report from 2019 ranks the University of Michigan 15th among all universities in the US in international students being hosted here. A little bit about the International Center. The International Center is kind of your first stop shop. So the University of Michigan is a very large and decentralized institution. For many students, it could be very confusing where you need to go to get specific assistance. We don't expect that you're going to be able to know exactly where to go. I've worked at the University of Michigan for 15 years, and I don't know where I need to go for everything that I need assistance with on campus. So it's unlikely that you will know specifically what offices to go to for help. That's why we're here. So we can help you with immigration issues, health insurance issues. We can set up all kinds of events and programs to help you interact with other students domestically and international students. But we're also here to help you know where to go if you're not sure where to go. So don't just think of us as immigration, health insurance, and everything else. Think of us as, if you're not sure what to do or where to go, you can come in and talk with an advisor. You can either talk with someone on our team, the International Student and Scholar Advising Team, or you can talk with someone on the Global Education and Education Abroad team that handles a lot of the programming on our campus for international students. So don't feel like we're strictly the immigration folks, because we're not just immigration, okay? Think of us as the first stop if you're not sure where to go, because if we can't help you, we're going to put you in touch with someone on campus that can help you. So as you are aware, the University of Michigan will have a public health informed in-person fall semester. This will consist of a combination of in-person, online, and hybrid classes. And we're here to help you get prepared for this journey. And if you're not familiar with the Campus Maze and Blueprint, we would recommend that you take some time to read through the blueprint that the University of Michigan has created. This is the University of Michigan's guide to living, learning, and working together safely this fall semester on our campus. As you read through the Campus Maze and Blueprint, we really want you to focus on a few things. And the first thing really is going to be the academic calendar. Okay, so with the academic calendar, we have a slightly modified set of semester dates for you this fall semester. And if we can move to the next slide. So the fall semester dates, as you'll see, start August 31st and go to November 20th. The first part of the semester, or the vast majority of the semester, is going to be this mix of online, hybrid, and in-person classes. Then we're going to break for Thanksgiving. There's going to be no classes from November 20th through the 29th. And then when we resume classes on November 30th, all of the classes will have moved to be online classes. There will be no in-person courses for those final few days of the semester, and also for final exams and projects. Please also note that there's not going to be a fall commencement, so fall graduates can participate in the winter semester ceremony in late April if you choose to do so. You will note that the break between the fall semester and the winter semester is much longer than it normally is. Usually, the University of Michigan starts classes again in early January. This year, classes won't begin until January 19th. And they will go straight through until April 20th. There will be no spring break at the University of Michigan this winter semester. You'll also note that classes will be a mix of online, hybrid, and in-person modes, and that will be the case for the entire semester. Final exams and projects will also be done in person in most cases, unless the course is specifically a totally online course. So you'll see that while we have this maze and blueprint put in place academically, the calendars are slightly different, and it's set up in a way to hopefully minimize any impact that the COVID-19 situation in the US may have on our academic year. So once you arrive on campus, what are the other things within the maze and blueprint that you really need to be aware of? That's specifically really the general safety guidelines and protocols. So the university hopes to establish a set of interwoven interventions that will enhance the health and safety for all members of our community. So not just students, but also faculty and staff as well. This is going to include wearing personal protective equipment, staying home when you're not feeling well, increasing the case tracking capabilities for people that may have been exposed to someone that has COVID-19, and encouraging staff and students and faculty to try and work from home as much as possible. Masks are going to be required indoors and when a distance of 6 feet cannot be met. Students are going to receive a starter kit, so you will receive a mask from the University of Michigan. It'll be a reusable mask, and you'll receive some hand sanitizer. On-campus housing will be open, so you will be able to access a lot of spaces, but lounges and common study areas may be closed, and masks are going to be required in all public areas of the residence hall. Also, dining halls are going to be slightly modified as well. So if you want to eat in person in a dining hall, you can do so, but you will have to make a reservation. Otherwise, if you don't make a reservation, you can still go to the dining hall for your food, but they will give it to you as a takeout. Single rooms are going to be prioritized for those with medical conditions that make them high risk, and the housing is expecting to be full for this fall semester. So these are some of the things that you need to be aware of as you prepare to come to campus, because everyone is going to have to modify their behavior, not just students, but faculty and staff, and how we interact with students within our offices and classrooms. So please do take some time, read through the maze and blueprint if you have not done so, and that will help you prepare for how you need to act once you arrive on campus in order for us to all stay as safe as possible this fall semester. With that brief introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Wagner, and Kelly Wagner is going to talk to you about campus life and support.
Thank you, Scott. All right, another quick poll for everybody. So for how many of you, is this your first time coming to the US? And I see some folks are trying to raise their hand. If you have questions, please submit them in the Q&A box, and that's how we'll be addressing them at the end of the session. If there's questions we can answer in advance, Kate and Jake will answer those throughout the presentation. All right, looks like we've got about 90% of people in, so I will share the results with you all. So it looks like it's almost, it's a pretty good split. For a big chunk of you, this might be your first time visiting the US, but about 2/3 have already been in the US before. So we are excited to have you in Michigan. For those of you who aren't aware, the state of Michigan and the University of Michigan are located in the Midwest of the US. The US is a pretty diverse country and pretty large, comparable to the size of China. And so it has many different geographies and climates and things like that. So I'll go over a little bit of those things right now. Ann Arbor is located in the southwest corner of Michigan. And as you will see, Michigan is kind of shaped like a mitten. So if you're in the Lower Peninsula, people will show you on their hand, like they'll point and say, oh, I'm from Ann Arbor, I'm from right here. I'm from Bad Axe, I'm from the tip of the thumb. I'm from Mackinac, I'm on the top of Michigan. So you'll see people point to their hand when they tell you where they're from. So people from Michigan aren't crazy, it's just a thing that we all do because our state is shaped like a mitten. Ann Arbor is about a 45-minute drive to downtown Detroit and about a 30-minute drive from the Detroit Metropolitan Airport, or DTW, which is where most of you will fly into. So I'll get into transportation in a bit in regards to traveling to and from the airport. The Ann Arbor campus itself is comprised of many campuses. So you may have classes on North Campus, you may have classes on South Campus, and you may have classes on Central Campus. And there's a pretty good transportation system to get between the three. So the North Campus is located on the northern part of Ann Arbor. This is where a lot of the engineering, School of Architecture, School of Music, Theater, and Dance are going to be a lot of those classes up there. The Central Campus has a lot of buildings you might be maybe familiar with visually if you haven't been to campus already, such as the Bell Tower, the Union, the League. And it's the closest to the downtown area, like State Street, where a lot of shopping and stores and restaurants are. And then there's the South Campus, which is where a lot of the athletic facilities are located. So if you're an athlete or if you want to attend games, that's where a lot of those stadiums are going to be located, including the Big House, which is the U of M football stadium, which is one of the largest in the world. And so if you want more information about what is located where, the links at the bottom of the slide will give you more information, as well as where each school and college have their main offices located if you're interested in where to find them. In addition to the North, South, and Central Campus, there are additional centers in Ann Arbor that are connected with U of M, such as the Medical Center, the Botanical Gardens, the Arboretum, and places like that. So I highly encourage you to take a look at the campus map and find out about all the great things and the different locations of U of M buildings. As I mentioned, Ann Arbor is located in the Midwest. And so like other Midwestern states, Michigan has 4 distinct seasons. So we do have a distinct spring, summer, fall, and winter that you will experience if you're here all year long. For some of you, it might be your first time experiencing winter because you may come from a climate that's either more temperate or warmer and tropical throughout the year. And so it may be a struggle for some of you if you don't like cold weather. It can get pretty chilly throughout the year. Additionally, in the US, we still use the empirical systems for measurements. So we talk in feet and inches and yards. We don't talk in meters and centimeters. We also use Fahrenheit instead of Celsius. So when you ask your American friends how warm or cold it is outside, they're not going to tell you in Celsius. And if you tell them how warm it is in Celsius, they're going to be confused. So unfortunately, that's just, we like to be different in that way. So I've put some range of temperatures on this slide so that you can have a better idea of how warm or cold it might get in each season. In terms of packing, because we do have a variety of climates, we recommend that you pack in what we would call in layers. So bring a couple items that fit for each type of weather. In the Midwest, we're often known for dressing in layers. So like even today, it's colder inside my apartment because the air conditioning is on, but I might take this sweater off when I go outside because it's warm outside right now. And then on the reverse of that, in the winter, I'll have maybe a coat, a sweater, a t-shirt on. And then when I go into a building, I'll take off the coat and maybe the sweater because it's warmer inside the building. So you have to be prepared for a variety of temperatures, even when going in and out of buildings in the US. So I highly recommend just bringing a couple things for each season, and then you can layer up or take layers off if you need to. If you don't own winter clothing already, you can find really affordable winter clothing in the United States. So don't worry about getting that in advance. You can find a lot of options right in Ann Arbor. If you already own winter clothing, it might be more cost effective to pack it and bring it with you, depending on how much it costs and how much it might cost to even ship it later, or how much room you have in your suitcase. So just keep that in mind when you're packing. If you need to buy something, I highly recommend you make sure that your winter coat is insulated, it's waterproof, and the same, I would say, make sure you get winter boots that are also insulated and waterproof, because it can get really wet on the ground when the snow melts, and there's big, cold, wet puddles you have to walk through. So just make sure you're prepared for pretty much anything in terms of weather when you arrive. As I also mentioned earlier, U of M has a pretty good transportation system. If you're coming from a major metropolitan area like London, Paris, Shanghai, Beijing, Tokyo, you're going to have probably a more robust public transportation system than what you'll see in Ann Arbor. But for the size of the city that we are, it's really good. U of M offers free bus service between the three main campuses of North Central and South Campus. You don't even need to show your M card. You can just hop on the bus and it'll take you, there's a couple different routes, so you'll have to make sure you get on the right route, but it will take you between the three campuses and a few other locations. It comes about every 10 to 15 minutes, but please be aware that at least during normal times, pre-COVID, if it's a popular class time throughout the day, buses can get really crowded. So you might want to plan on having to wait for a bus or two before you get on at certain times. So maybe just plan an extra 10 to 20 minutes if you are traveling between campuses, just in case you can't get on the first bus because it's too crowded. Additionally, the city of Ann Arbor has a public transportation system called The Ride. It's free to U of M students. You just have to swipe your U of M ID or M card when you get on the bus, and it can take you all throughout the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti area. The central sort of bus station, the Blake Transit Center, is probably about a 10 or 15 minute walk from Central Campus. And that location even has transit routes that will take you down to downtown Detroit if you're interested in visiting. It also goes to most grocery stores and like movie theaters and other restaurants around town. So it's a really great way to get around the city without having to own a car. So if you are worried about that, most of our students don't own a car, so don't feel like you're going to need to have one in Ann Arbor to get around. But take a look at the routes and the schedules. There's also some updates for each of them due to the COVID-19 virus. So make sure you take a look at those as well to get more information about how capacity on the buses may have changed, or rules around like wearing masks and social distancing as well. In terms of getting from the airport, there are a couple of services that are usually offered through the university and the RIDE, or Ann Arbor's public transportation system. The first is called the Michigan Flyer. It is a really affordable way to get to and from DTW. As I mentioned, it picks up at the Blake Transportation Center, which is located in downtown Ann Arbor. It only costs $12 if you buy your ticket in advance, or $15 if you buy it on site. Currently, service on the Michigan Flyer is temporarily suspended. So check the website. They may open back up by the time August comes around, because the COVID situation could get better. In Michigan, it's pretty low compared to some other areas in the United States. So depending on how things go, they may resume service before school classes start in August. There's also the Airbus, which is offered through the Central Student Government of U of M, but they only offer this service during breaks So it's not offered all year round. But if you needed some cheap transportation to the airport, maybe before the winter break because you decide to go home at the end of the semester, they usually host this service then. So take a look at their website. They might have times and pickup locations listed soon. Additionally, there's Uber and Lyft, which are ride share services. Some of you may be familiar with Uber because it's available overseas, wherever you're living. Lyft is a very similar service, so they work the same way, but a ride in an Uber or a Lyft from the airport are going to cost you around $40 to $50 to get to downtown Ann Arbor. So just keep that in mind. It's a little bit pricey. Taxis are available at DTW as well. So if you don't arrange transportation in advance, you can go to the Ground Transportation Center near baggage claim and you find a taxi. Again, this could be pretty expensive just because taxi services are a little bit more expensive than Uber or Lyft. So just keep that in mind. It might be costing you more like $50 to $60 each way. I've never taken a taxi from the airport. I usually just use Uber or Lyft. Also, there's your own network. So if you haven't joined some of the student organization like WhatsApp or WeChat groups or Facebook groups, I highly recommend you do so because a lot of times these student organizations arrange airport pickup between current members for the new students. So I know the Indian Student Association does it. I think the Chinese Student Association does it as well. So get connected with some of those student organizations because they may be able to find you a ride with a current student that's free. And there's more information. So come back to these slides later and take a look at some other resources for getting to and from the airport. All right. So another quick poll for everybody. I'm just curious to know how many of you have already made plans for housing in Ann Arbor. Maybe you haven't signed a lease yet, but if maybe you know whether or not you want to live on or off campus. All right, looks like we've got about 90% in, so I will share the results. So looks like today most people are planning on living on campus. We have about a third saying off campus and then another third saying they don't know yet, which is totally fine. Hopefully this will help answer some questions about pros and cons of each for living on or off campus. So campus housing, on-campus housing is going to be the traditional residence halls that you might think of for undergraduate students. If you haven't applied already, please click this link and go there later and try to apply as soon as you can because housing does fill up fairly quickly. As Scott mentioned, there are a lot of changes this year in housing and how things run because of the COVID-19 situation. So look at the campus maze and blueprint. There's a lot of information on there, but as Scott mentioned, masks are going to be required in residence halls when you're outside of your room and in public spaces. They're also working to create sort of family units where maybe a couple like areas of the residence hall may be considered like a family unit or a couple of rooms so that people can kind of have their network, maybe where masks aren't mandatory or ways to check in with each other. And again, single rooms are only going to be prioritized for those who are high risk for COVID-19 and may need that single space. They're also working on plans for if a quarantine or anything like that is needed at any point. But the residence halls are pretty secure. You have to have a valid M card to enter a residence hall. So if you are not a resident of that building, your M card will not work to let you in. But if you are an undergraduate student living in on-campus housing, you will not be allowed to stay in the residence hall usually during the winter breaks and the summer breaks. This year, because the classes are going purely online after Thanksgiving, students can still remain in the residence hall through finals, but again, that winter break kind of means after final exams and before the winter semester starts in January. So if you're staying in the United States at that time, you'll have to work with housing to find sort of an alternative location during that break. And housing usually shuts down and is not offered during the spring and summer semesters for the residence halls. There are other locations where if you need something that is covered through winter break or summer breaks, if you're a graduate student, you can live in the Munger Suites on Central Campus. There's also the Northwood Townhomes on North Campus, which I think those are also available to undergraduate students. They function more like an apartment. So the Munger Suites, you have your own room that includes a bathroom, and then you have a shared kitchen and dining and living area with other students. Northwood is more like in a townhouse, so there'll be a kitchen and a living room on the main level and bathrooms and bedrooms upstairs. And these work more as a lease. So you have a lease that starts usually on the 1st or the 15th of each month, and then leases end June 30th. So usually it's a full year lease, but they may have different terms, like you might be able to do 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. So just keep that in mind in case the amount of time you'll be in the United States varies. If on-campus housing doesn't work for you, there are many, many places off campus that you can live in Ann Arbor. There's a variety of different styles of off-campus housing. There might be co-ops, there might be apartments, townhouses, houses, and there's been a lot of new buildings that have been, and high-rises that have been coming up where it's similar to Munger, where you're paying to rent a room, and then you have a shared space with a kitchen and dining area with other members who are also renting that space, and you can get assistance finding those roommates, or you can go in with people you know and rent an apartment that way. So make sure you're paying attention to what kind of housing it is, or think about what kind of housing you might want. Some of the buildings that are newer are probably gonna be more expensive. A lot of the older buildings are gonna be a little more affordable. Also keep in mind that if you're living off campus, sometimes the housing does not include utilities. So this can mean your electric, your internet, your gas. So these are additional costs you'll have to factor in the cost into your cost of living throughout the year. So pay attention. It will be stated in your lease, or usually with a leasing agent, as to whether or not those are included. There are some options that are furnished, but I think those are pretty limited in Ann Arbor. So again, if you need something furnished, make sure you're asking in advance, because just because there's pictures of furniture in the ad does not mean there's actually furniture in the apartment. If you are looking for housing, I highly recommend you take a look at the U of M Beyond the Diag website. The companies that post on here have all been vetted through the university, so we know that they're reliable companies and we have a good relationship with them. So I recommend looking there. Additionally, you can find listings on Craigslist or Facebook, as well as your network or student organizations. They may know people who have graduated and are looking for someone to sublease or take over a lease from them. So take a look in the student orgs as well. Before you sign anything, please take your lease to Student Legal Services. Even if you're not on campus yet, you can email them a copy of it and they can take a look at it and let you know whether or not that lease is legitimate and looks like it's up to standards that sound good to sign, and they'll ask questions to make sure it works for your needs. Every year we have at least one student who gets scammed around leases, because a lot of you are trying to find apartments before you arrive, so you may be signing a lease sight unseen. It is totally okay to ask whoever you're renting an apartment from to do a visual walkthrough with you. So FaceTime with them, do a Skype meeting or a Zoom meeting, and have them walk through the apartment to make sure it's legitimate. We've had several students sign leases with someone and pay a deposit, and then they show up in Ann Arbor and that building or that unit doesn't exist. And then they find out they have nowhere to live that evening. So I highly recommend you do that with people, as well as sending maybe the advertisement or the lease to Student Legal Services in advance to make sure you aren't getting scammed and losing a lot of money. In addition to housing, there are several dining halls and cafeterias on campus. So if you're living on campus, you'll be required to have a dining hall if you're an undergraduate, or a dining meal plan if you are an undergraduate student. If you're living in Northwood or Munger, because there are kitchens in those residence halls, you're not required to have a meal plan, but you are more than welcome to purchase a meal plan, as well as if you're living off campus. You know, if you know you're going to be on campus every day from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and you don't want to worry about packing a lunch or dinner. You can purchase a meal plan. This year, the dining halls will look a little different because we will only have reserved seating made by reservations. Otherwise, everything's going to be to go. But the university's been working on an app to help order things in advance and manage some of these things. You can also add money to your M card called Blue Bucks, and you can use that at any of the restaurants in the Union or other places on campus and cafes. So if you don't want to worry about carrying cash around with you, you can use Blue Bucks to buy food on campus. The dining halls cater to a lot of different dietary restrictions. So if you're kosher, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, or halal, there's usually an option for all of those diets every single day. So we do our best to accommodate all of those needs for students. If you have more specific allergies, like a nut allergy or other things, they work one-on-one with a lot of students to provide some allergy-free spaces to either make your own meal and to keep them secure. So just check in with dining if you have a severe allergy of something else that you might need support with if you're living on campus. And if you visit the M Dining site, they'll list the variety of locations as well as the hours of those dining halls and the menus each day. So you can check to see, maybe you don't want to go to South Quad today, you want to go over to Bursley Hall because the food's better over there that day. Like, you're more than welcome to go to any dining hall with a meal plan. You don't have to go to just the one in the residence hall closest to you or the one you live in. We get a lot of questions about banking from students. So U of M has an official relationship with PNC Bank. And so this bank allows you to link your debit card with your M card if you don't want to carry two devices around with you all day. But although that relationship exists with PNC, you are not required to get a bank account through PNC. There are many regional and national and international banks in Ann Arbor. So maybe a bank you already use has a branch or location in the US or in Ann Arbor, so you may not even need to get a new bank before coming here. I highly suggest you look to see what ATMs are located, especially if you're already in the United States and moving maybe from California to Michigan. Maybe the bank you currently use doesn't have a branch in Michigan, so you may need to switch banks so that you have access to cash. But also banks have a lot of online features too. So like, I have a bank here. I never go to the branch. If I get a check for some reason, I just take a picture of it on my phone, upload it, and the money gets deposited to my account. I don't need to go to an ATM or a branch location to do that. So you may not be necessary. So look at the digital features that are available through a bank you may currently have that's located in the US. Also, say you decide to get a bank here in the US and you don't like the bank, you're upset about the features, you feel like the link takes too long, maybe hasn't been the best customer service that you liked, you're free to get a new bank at any time. So if you want to switch banks, don't feel like you're set with that account. You can take your money and move it to another bank at any time. We have a lot more information about like what documents you need and things like that to open a bank account on the IC website. And so these links at the bottom will give you a good comparison of banks, as well as information about how and what to take with you when you go to open a bank account. Additionally, in terms of paying tuition and fees at U of M, bills are posted to your Student Wolverine Access portal each month, and it's sent to the student email account. So if you have a friend, family member, parent who are going to be paying your bills, please set up a parent and family authorization form so that they receive those messages as well, because otherwise whoever's paying your bill is not going to know that there's a bill because it only gets sent to the student. When making payments, U of M accepts payments on any student charges in the form of cash, check, or e-payment. That e-payment works with domestic bank accounts, not with international bank accounts. So if you need to send an international payment, you're going to have to do that with a company called Flywire that is on the Office of Financial Aid and Cashier's website. So you can click on Flywire below to get more information about paying through them. If your family or yourself would like to split payments up, we do offer an optional payment plan, which will spread your total bill over 5 payments throughout the semester. And the university will not charge you interest if you decide to do this. So take a look at the payment plan brochure link if that's something you want to do, because there is a deadline to request that you need to make sure you do in advance. If you miss the deadline, you won't be able to do that. You could still split the payment up and pay in separate chunks, but you would get charged interest because you didn't sign up for the payment plan. Health and wellness. All right, so in terms of monthly billing, all of you are required to be on the International Student Health Insurance Plan. Unless you have comparable coverage, then you can sign a waiver, but you need to apply to be waived from our insurance. And so make sure you do that as quickly as possible. If you already have insurance, you'll be getting either, maybe you might be getting grad care or something else at the university. Check with our office as soon as possible to make sure you aren't billed. Everyone is automatically enrolled. So you will have a charge on your August billing for August health insurance, since the semester starts August 31st for classes. So you will get charged for the entire month of August for health insurance. Those monthly payments are posted on Wolverine Access each month. If you click the link above, you'll get more detailed information about coverage and how much you might owe, and like your terms of your deductible and out-of-pocket maximums, which are really affordable for international students. The U of M health insurance plan also includes dental care coverage now. So if you need to get your teeth cleaned or you have a cavity, you can visit a dentist and you can use your insurance to cover those costs. It may seem frustrating to pay for insurance. Depending on where you're coming from, this might be a very new concept. In the US, medical coverage can be very expensive if you do not have health insurance. So while it might seem unreasonable to have to pay for it, this is sort of a quick reminder, or maybe an informative piece. Like if you tripped on the sidewalk on campus and say you sprained or broke your ankle and you needed to go to an emergency room, you could walk out of that emergency room paying anywhere from $4,000 to $25,000 just to get x-rays, get a cast on, have a doctor look at it, maybe get some pain medicine. It's gonna be very expensive to take care of that without the medical insurance. So with medical insurance, you probably won't have to pay more than like $100. So just keep that in mind, and it's very important. If at any point you have questions about health insurance, we do have a health insurance advisor on staff. And so you can email ihi@umich.edu and set up an appointment with our health insurance advisor to get questions answered about coverage or why something was or wasn't covered, and they can help you through the process. On campus, there's the University Health Services department, and they do walk-in visits and appointments for students. It's very low cost, and students pay a fee for UHS, so it might even be cheaper than going to a doctor off campus, depending on what's going on. You may not have to pay copay or anything. And so there's also interpretation available when you schedule your appointments. Just make sure you ask for that. So if you want someone to speak in Chinese or Spanish or Arabic, that can be available. U of M has a very good hospital. It's ranked number 5 in the US and it's number 15 worldwide. And your international student health insurance plan is accepted there, and they also have translation services. If you don't want to use UHS, you can also get a primary care physician through U of M medical system and have a doctor at some other location because maybe it's closer to your home and maybe more convenient to you. If you do need, immunizations are not required by U of M or the US government for you to come here, but we do recommend that you get some of them. Just protect yourself throughout the year, especially like a flu vaccine or things like that. You can get immunizations for a small fee at UHS. You can get more information by clicking on the link. Additionally, in terms of wellness, we take mental health very seriously at U of M. So we do have a counseling and psychological services, or CAPS office for students. They offer free counseling services throughout the year for all enrolled students. We also have a variety of counselors from different backgrounds. So they speak a variety of languages. So if you want to speak to somebody in your native language, there are counselors available that speak Mandarin, Japanese, Spanish, things like that. They also offer events and group support. So if one-on-one counseling maybe isn't something you're interested in, there are ways you can go and seek group support as well. And they have a SilverCloud online mental health tool as well. And lastly, I think most facilities are currently closed because of the COVID-19 situation, but there are many fitness facilities on campus and club sports offered through recreational sports. So if you're interested in playing on like a club soccer team, or maybe dance or things like that, look at the rec sports page, because you might be able to connect with other students who are also interested in those types of activities. Campus safety. So U of M has a very great Department of Public Safety and Security, or DPSS. In terms of housing in your residence hall, lock your doors when you leave. Most of the crime that happens on campus is somebody walked into an unlocked house or apartment and stole something. So first and foremost, just make sure you're locking your doors when you leave. If something major happens, U of M's DPSS has a alert system. So you'll get texts and emails, whether that's bad weather, maybe power went out, school's closed for some reason, or a major safety concern, you'll get a text alert and an email alert and a phone call if you're signed up for the U of M emergency alerts. If you need to contact DPS, their number is listed below. I think if you also download the Michigan app, you can contact them directly through the app. You can also text them as well now, I think. If it's a true emergency, please contact 911. That's the emergency number in the United States. So if you see someone needs immediate medical attention, if you see a fire, a car accident, you yourself are feeling very ill and you need immediate medical assistance, or you feel like your safety is immediately at risk, call 911 and someone will get to you as soon as possible. Throughout campus, you'll also see blue light phones. So if you see something suspicious or feel unsafe, you can click that red button that's on the little tower with the blue light on top, and that will immediately contact DPSS as well. Some of you may study at the library very late and you may not feel safe walking back in the dark alone. So if you are interested, there are free after-hour rides available that will take you anywhere around campus. So you can request those anytime between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. We also recommend that you register your device in advance, such as your laptop, so that anything gets stolen and it gets retrieved, the police will know that that was your laptop or your device. You can also, if anything's stolen, you can contact DPSS to help them find it. And last but not least, scams. So every year, somebody tries to scam international students. I think last year, the big one was people calling and pretending like they were the Chinese consulate. A lot of times to a tax as it comes up. The US government's never gonna call you if it's taxes or immigration related, they're going to send you letters. So again, if something seems off, before you send anyone any money, please call the International Center or call DPSS and we can let you know whether or not that request is legitimate. We've had students lose out on tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars because of scams. In terms of academics, U of M has, I think 20 libraries on campus. And so if you click on that link, you'll find the different locations. Some of them are specialty libraries. So there might be one for engineers, one for architects. So you can find maybe some specialized areas of libraries too. There's a law library. And you can check out the different hours that they're available. Again, with COVID, things might be shifting this year. I also highly recommend you take advantage of faculty office hours. This might be new for some of you, but faculty are required to have office hours. I think I even heard of someone recently changing it to student hours. So if you're maybe confused about a concept in your class, feel free to go to faculty office hours and get more information. There's academic advising centers throughout campus that can help you. And if you're concerned about maybe English language in terms of writing or speaking, there's several offices or departments on campus that can help you, such as the Sweetland Writing Center, the English Language Institute, and the Language Resource Center. And ELI and LRC also offer conversation partners and conversation circles. So if you want to chat with other international students as well as someone who's a native English speaker, they usually meet once a week or once a month for a few hours, and everyone can chat to practice their English speaking skills. ELI also offers writing and speaking classes for maybe folks that are going to be GSIs, but they do have classes for undergraduate and graduate students. So take a look if you want maybe some additional support with English language when you are here. And lastly, for classroom expectations, the US has a pretty relaxed atmosphere when it comes to classrooms. So this might be something you're not used to. This year will be a little different with things being hybrid and online and in person, but for the most part, US students are used to having a relaxed atmosphere in the classroom. People don't get dressed up a lot to go to class. They might just be in sweatpants and a t-shirt. But that doesn't mean they're not serious students. So just keep that in mind. Classrooms are usually very technology friendly. You can bring your laptop. When you're there, they might be very integrated in terms of what's going on in the classroom as well. But the main point of US education is usually that it's student-centered. So we focus on critical thinking. We want students to express their opinions about the matters and think about, do they agree or disagree and why? And so professors will usually support students in this way by active learning. So this means in-class discussion, which might be part of your grade. So make sure you look at your syllabus to see if class participation is something that you're going to be graded on. So that could be very new for a lot of international students. You might have presentations, you might have team group projects, papers and case studies and final projects or labs throughout the year. So multi-pronged assessment and having assignments throughout the year for a grade could be very different. So look at the syllabus when you get it, either in Canvas or on your first day of class, to see how you are graded and when those assignments are due throughout the semester, so that you don't miss anything. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott to do the immigration section.
Hello again. Again, for those of you that maybe joined a little late, my name is Scott Manley, and I'll be going over the immigration section with you. So again, for the first part of this, we're going to kind of talk about best case scenario and the normal regulations that you would be following. And then I might go through that rather quickly. And then we will go through the most recent guidance and hopefully answer most of your questions revolving around that. So the first thing you're going to want to be preparing for is applying for your US visa. So when you receive your I-20 form or your DS-19, 2019, you're going to need to pay the I-901 CBIS fee. You want to print out a receipt of this and you want to keep this with you because you should take that with you to your visa appointment. You also want to then complete the DS-160. This is your actual visa application form online. You want to fill it out completely, pay the visa application fee, and then schedule an appointment with the consulate. You may not be able to schedule an appointment with a consulate directly right now, but you may be able to go through a third-party provider that will help you actually schedule a visa appointment. We do know that most US embassies and consulates are not reopened at this time, and we're not sure when they will reopen, and we do know that many consulates and embassies have quite a backlog of applications already in place that students have made through these third-party providers. So please be aware that if you're not able to apply for the visa right now directly through the embassy's website, you may be able to do so through a third-party provider, but that availability may be limited for the next month or two or three. We've heard, depending on what students, what embassies or consulate students are applying through, sometimes the wait is now almost to November. So please do try to schedule your appointment as soon as possible if you do have your I-20 or DS 2019. Tips for applying, again, apply as early as possible. You can receive a visa up to 120 days before your program start date. So we're all within that time frame right now. The one thing I do want to highlight on this is that you do want to be prepared to demonstrate your intent to return home. If you're applying for an F1 or a J1 visa, you are applying for a non-immigrant visa. So the assumption that the government has is that you are planning on immigrating to the US, and for them to issue the F1 visa or the J1 visa, you have to overcome that assumption. It's a little bit different from the US justice system where you're innocent until proven guilty. Here, the government assumes that you are immigrating until you can prove otherwise. So do be prepared to show that you still have close ties to your home country during the application. We do have a list of generally required documents for your visa application on our website. I would encourage you to review that as you prepare for your visa interviews. Once you have your visa, then you need to prepare for your arrival. So there's a couple of things that you're going to need to do. One, you're going to need to do an international student check-in. We're still not sure whether or not this will have to be done in person, which is what the university's policy normally is, or online. We're preparing for an online check-in, so you may not actually have to physically meet with us. It may be something that you are going to be able to complete online. We will be notifying all incoming students how they will be able to complete the check-in when they arrive. So you should receive that information sometime by the end of July, and you should have that and know exactly what you need to do in order to complete the check-in. One of the things you will need for your check-in is your I-94. So you will need to go and be able to check your I-94 online and make sure that you're admitted correctly to the US. Now, this is something that we highlight in our check-in presentation, but it's something that you should be aware of right away, is that when you travel in and out of the country, the border officials may actually make a mistake on your admission information. So you want to get into the habit of checking your I-94 every time you re-enter the country from going overseas, because there may be a mistake on it. And if there's a mistake on it, you'll need to contact our office so that we can help you fix the information through the Customs and Border Patrol websites. Okay. As Kelly indicated earlier, you do want to make sure that you make arrangements for transportation to campus. That'll be the easiest and least stressful way of actually getting from the airport to campus. Also, in regards to money, please do not bring more than $10,000 in some type of combination of cash, money order, traveler's checks. Anything over $10,000 needs to be declared in advance on a U.S. and Customs Border Protection declaration form. We recommend that you bring less than that and that you then set up a bank account and make arrangements to transfer money to your bank account once you arrive. You will also want to make any type of temporary housing arrangements before you arrive, especially if you plan to arrive before you're able to enter your on-campus housing. So let's talk a little bit about the normal immigration regulations before we talk about the most recent guidance. So under the normal immigration regulations, you need to maintain good academic standing and make progress towards your degree requirements. You have to be doing well academically. For international students, you typically need to enroll full-time during our academic year, and that's defined as the fall and winter semesters. Full-time for undergraduate students is 12 credits. For graduate students, it's usually 8 credits, unless the graduate student has a graduate student instructor or graduate student research assistant appointment. Then you would need to be in a minimum of 6 credits. This next point is very important, and we'll talk a little bit about it once we get to the new guidance. Under the normal regulations, international students may only count a maximum of 3 credits of online classes towards their minimum enrollment requirements. So if you were an undergraduate student, that means that you would need to be in a minimum of 9 credits of in-person classes where you are physically on campus and attending class on a regular or semi-regular basis. And then you could be enrolled in 3 or more online credits, but only 3 of those online credits are going to count towards your minimum enrollment requirements. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference for the fall semester right now, or in a little bit. You do need to maintain a valid passport and I-20. You should have health insurance coverage. And then when it comes to employment, new F1 students and J1 students are able to work on campus. You can work on campus up to 20 hours each week during the academic year. You may work more than 20 hours each week during breaks and vacation periods. The 20-hour-a-week limit is not an average. You can't work 40 hours one week and 0 hours the next week and say, well, I averaged 20 hours each week for the 2 weeks. It's a maximum of 20 hours each week during the academic year. International students are also not eligible to work off campus without proper work authorization. We have a lot of information about work authorizations on our website. But please do note that for most new students coming into campus, you will not be eligible to work off campus until you complete 2 semesters of in-person on-campus courses. So for most of you, that means the earliest that you will be able to do some type of internship is going to be next summer if you're able to arrive on campus for fall, and then you enroll full-time in fall and full-time in winter. So those are the normal immigration regulations that you would normally be following. So let's talk a little bit about the new guidance and what is that going to have an impact on for students. So the new guidance essentially takes all of the normal regulations, puts them in place, and because the University of Michigan is a hybrid model for the fall semester where we have a combination of in-person and online classes, we fall in one specific group of schools where those students that are on campus and are able to enroll in some in-person classes may count more than 3 credits of online classes towards their minimum enrollment requirements. However, the government does not allow you to enroll fully in online courses while you're in the United States. So there's no way for a new student to arrive in the US and instead of coming to campus, stay with relatives in California and enroll fully online. The government will not allow you to do that because the University of Michigan is offering in-person classes. So if you're able to arrive in the US for the fall semester, you'll be required to be enrolled in at least 1 credit of some type of in-person class. Okay. So let's talk about those of you that are able to arrive on campus first. Essentially, all the normal regulations are in place with the exception of the fact that you can enroll in more than 3 credits of online classes and have that count towards your degree. However, the new guidance is pretty specific. They don't allow students at the University of Michigan to enroll fully in online classes. You have to be enrolled in some type of in-person class or at least a hybrid class. You will see some information about this. The registrar's office is working on kind of identifying what course sections are in-person or hybrid or online. The acronyms or the initials that you'll need to know is that if you're looking at a section and the section is P, that means it's in person. You will need to be enrolled in as many P courses as possible. So you might not be able to enroll in all P courses, and that's fine. If you're not able to enroll in all P courses, then the next best course that you can enroll in is going to be a mixed course or a hybrid course, and that's going to be MC. And when you are looking at a MC course, you'll want to also try and enroll in as many of those. So in order of preference, if you can enroll in a P course, an in-person course, that's the best for you to enroll in. If you can't enroll in any P courses, then you need to at least enroll in at least 1 mixed course, 1 hybrid course, an MC course. And then once you have established as many classes as you can enroll either in P or MC designations, then you could start to enroll in DC courses, which are distance courses or online courses. Those would not have any type of in-person component. Now, those can count towards your minimum enrollment. You just cannot enroll in all DC courses if you are in the United States. You'll need to be on campus. You'll need to be enrolled in at least 1 P or at least 1 MC course for the fall semester. For those of you that are not able to arrive on campus for the fall semester, let's talk a little bit about your options and how you're going to be able to potentially go through each of those things. So if you're not able to receive your visa and arrive on campus for the start of the fall semester, the first option you want to think about is a late arrival. A late arrival would allow you to generally come to campus a week or maybe 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks after the start of your I-20. So your I-20 should start at the latest right now, August 31st. Many of you will have August 24th or similar dates on your I-20s or DS 2019s. So what you'll want to think about is, well, I can't make it by August 31st, but I can get there by September 10th. You'll want to contact your department and you want to contact your admissions office and ask for a late arrival letter. With a late arrival letter, we will not update your I-20 start date. We will just simply issue you a letter that states that we're aware that your I-20 states that it's an August 31st start date for your courses, but we're allowing you to come a few weeks late. So that's your first option. If you're not able to arrive within the first couple weeks of the semester, then you're probably going to have to think about deferring. And by deferring, we actually do have to update your I-20. So it's not necessarily that you are deferring your entire ability to enroll at the University of Michigan. You're deferring the start date of your immigration paperwork. And with that, with a deferral, we need to update your information with the government and put a new start date on your immigration documents. You'll also want to talk with your department and with your admissions office about the possibilities for deferrals. So the university is trying to be as flexible as possible. We do have the ability for some students to defer to mid-semester to potentially like late October, so that if they're able to get their visa and they still want to arrive on campus, that they could do so. But there's a couple of things that you need to be aware of. If you're able to enroll in online classes and start your courses remotely by doing online coursework overseas, you still then need to be in some type of in-person class when you arrive mid-semester. So your courses need to be potentially a mixed course, or you need to be able to have permission from your department to move from the online section of the class to the in-person section of the class. If you arrive mid-semester in October and you don't have the ability to enroll in some type of on-campus course and you're still enrolled in all DC classes, so to speak, that poses a problem because that doesn't allow you to maintain your immigration status according to the most recent guidance. So you do want to talk with your department about a mid-semester deferral and see if that's okay. The other thing you want to think about is housing. If you're going to be in housing during the mid-semester or during the semester, are you paying for 2 months of rent and then in order to be able to arrive, or do you want to defer to winter? Now, each program will determine whether or not they will allow some type of mid-semester deferral, or if they will defer you to winter, or in some programs, if you're not able to start the program and you don't want to take online classes from your home country, you may have to defer to the following fall semester because some programs are very lockstep in how you progress through the program. So it's really important for you to be going through and talking with your department if you don't think you'll be able to arrive on campus by the start of the semester. Your first option is going to be a late arrival. Your second option is then going to be a deferral, and you want to know within your department when you might be able to defer based on when your visa application will be. Some will allow you to defer to mid-semester, some will have you defer to winter, some may ask you to defer to the following fall semester. So you really want to follow up with them about that. A couple of other things specifically with the guidance that I know some students have questioned. So part of the guidance that the University of Michigan has to follow is that we have to reprint all students' I-20s, both new students and continuing students, and we have to indicate on those I-20s that the student is not going to be enrolled fully in online classes, that the university is not operating fully online, and that the student is taking the minimum number of online classes to progress academically towards their degree requirements. That's why when I was talking about the courses you should be enrolling in, that's why P courses are the best, mixed courses are the second best, And then once you've filled up as many class slots as possible with P and mixed courses, that's when you then start to look at the online courses, because the government is essentially requiring you to try and enroll in as few of online courses as possible if you're going to be on campus. So how are we going to do this? We're going to try and reissue over 7,000 I-20s for students by August 4th. Once we reissue the I-20s, we will probably be reaching out to students and asking them how they prefer to receive the I-20. We can send it to you electronically still, so we might be able to just send you a PDF that you can print out and use, or we may be able to ship it to you, but you will probably have to set up the shipping and pay for the cost of the shipping if you want it. There is nothing in the guidance that indicates that your current I-20 is no longer valid. So you should be able to continue to use your new I-20 to apply for a visa. And really, you should be able to use your current I-20 to travel to the United States and enter the US. When you apply for a visa, they may be asking you whether or not the University of Michigan is totally online. You can point them to the Mason Blueprint page, and you can point them to President Schlissel's message that indicates that we will be in person for the fall semester. That should be enough documentation for the consular official to know that they can approve the visa for you without much of an issue, because we're not fully online. You also have to realize that some schools aren't mixed. Some schools are just operating as normal, and they don't need to update their I-20s at all. So the consular officials are not expecting every student to have a new updated I-20 with that information on it. They will still be accepting normal I-20s without any remarks put on it. The border officials will still be seeing students at the borders that are not doing any type of hybrid courses, and those schools don't have to have any comments on their I-20s. So even though we're required to reprint and reissue your I-20s, that does not invalidate your current I-20s. And you probably will be perfectly fine with your original I-20 and a copy of the new one without any issues. So I don't think that you necessarily need to have the new one shipped to you. So that's something that I wanted to make sure that you would have available in your information to you. So when we do reach out to you about your new I-20, you can make an informed decision whether or not you actually feel like you want to pay to have that sent to you, because there probably is no need for you to have that actually sent to you physically. So where does that leave you? I want to try and allow Kelly some time. So where does that leave you? It really leaves you as trying to determine whether or not you want to attempt to arrive for the fall classes. If you can arrive late or mid-semester, if that's an option. There are some things that you're going to want to be thinking about, like housing, that aren't directly tied to it, and then the ability to move to in-person classes. If you opt to not come to campus for the fall, we can defer the start date of your immigration paperwork to winter, and you can still enroll online fully or partially from your home country. If you're not here and you're not in F1 status or J1 status, you're not subject to the immigration regulations for F1 or J1 students. So theoretically, you could enroll in 1 credit, or you could enroll in 18 credits if you want to try and start your program and progress as much as possible academically. The decision really is going to be yours as to what you prefer to do for the fall semester. And again, we can defer your immigration paperwork, but that still doesn't necessarily mean that you're deferring your admission. You could still potentially enroll in the fall semester online and defer your immigration paperwork for winter or for next year. Ultimately, you'll want to be in contact with your department and make that decision yourself. Hopefully that answers most of the questions. I know that there are a lot of questions in the queue. I'm pretty sure we will not get to all of those, but what we will try to do is download all of those, and then when we post this on our website, we will also try to include answers to those questions that you may have. Now I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Nelson so that she can then talk a little bit about orientation and beyond.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Kelly Nelson, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the culture of Michigan, getting involved on campus, as well as some information about what you can expect during orientation programming later this summer. So, as you heard already, Michigan is located in the Midwest region of the United States. So the next few things I'm going to say about the Midwest and the US will be generalizations, which means that they won't necessarily apply to everyone because the United States is a very diverse country. So Midwestern Americans are generally thought to be outwardly friendlier than Americans who might live on the East Coast or in bigger cities. However, it is the case that most Americans do like to maintain a private life, and so it might take longer than you'd expect to form a real close friendship with an American. One thing that you might notice right when you arrive in Ann Arbor is that in Michigan and in the Midwest, people tend to smile a lot, even at strangers on the street. So you might be walking down the street and someone that you don't know will smile at you. This is normal, and there's generally no need to be concerned if you notice this. Americans also tend to greet each other briefly using phrases such as, "Good morning, how are you?" or "Hey, what's up?" These are usually intended to be the equivalent of saying hello, and don't necessarily invite conversation. Therefore, if someone says, "Hi, how are you?" or "Hey, what's up?" it's best to just simply respond with, "Great, how are you?" or "Fine, how are you?" rather than proceeding to tell your whole life story. The city of Ann Arbor is what's known as a college town, as the entire city really revolves around the University of Michigan. Because of this, it's very diverse as students, faculty, and staff come to the University of Michigan from around the United States as well as around the world. So this means while you're here, you'll have the opportunity to really get to know a diverse array of people from literally around the world. So there's certainly a lot to say on the topic of social interactions, but we do want to mention a few things that you might notice when you arrive here. So in terms of taboo topics, there are several topics that we would recommend avoiding in conversation, especially with people that you don't know very well. And they would be things like age, weight, sexual orientation, relationship status, political views, income level, etc. Now, the rules around this might be relaxed amongst friends, but generally if you don't know someone very well, it's probably best to avoid those topics. Also, generally in the US, when visiting friends, it's best to wait until you are invited over versus simply showing up at their house or apartment. I would say that this doesn't necessarily apply to undergraduates who are living in dorms, though, because that atmosphere tends to be a bit more open and social. During non-COVID times, potlucks are also very common. So don't be surprised if at some point during your time in the United States, you're invited over to a friend's house for one of these events. So a potluck refers to a party in which each guest has to bring a dish to share. And if you're not sure what to bring, don't worry. It's always appropriate to ask the person who invited you for recommendations about what you should bring. As an international student, I think it's always nice if you can bring something from your home country, maybe a recipe that you really like from home. People do tend to appreciate this. If it's not a potluck, if you're just invited over to a friend's house and they will be cooking all of the dinner, then it is customary to bring a small gift for the host, such as maybe flowers or a small souvenir from your home country. So you might want to think about that before heading to the United States. Are there maybe really small, very inexpensive souvenirs that you could bring along with you for situations like this? And then finally, when waiting for service in the US, like if you go to purchase a coffee or a bubble tea or food, it is customary to wait in line and wait your turn rather than all kind of crowding to the front of the counter. And then the last thing that we want to mention on this slide is DEI, which stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This is something that you will likely see a lot of when you start here at the University of Michigan and also just in the United States in general. This is a really important topic right now in our culture. So it's a really big part of the University of Michigan culture as well. And it's really referring to initiatives and policies that are intended to increase diversity and inclusiveness here at the University of Michigan campus. Next slide. So although studying abroad in a new country is very exciting, it's also important to acknowledge that there are challenges that come along with that experience. And we've listed several very common challenges here on this slide. Some may experience personal challenges. For example, it might be the first time that you're away from family and friends for an extended period of time, and it can take time to establish a new support system in a new place. Academic challenges are also common. Many of you will be experiencing a new classroom environment, and the classroom norms and expectations might be very different from what you are used to back home. It's also really important to note that these challenges are not unique to international students. So even students from the United States experience challenges when moving to a new environment to start university. In addition, the same goes for students from the United States who decide to study abroad in another country while at U of M. In fact, I experienced some of these same things when I studied abroad in Germany as an undergrad. Thankfully, there are many resources to help students overcome these challenges at the University of Michigan, and many of those you heard about in earlier slides when my colleague Kelly was talking about health services. Next slide, please. So as you know, the University of Michigan is a very large campus, and one really great way to start forming those social connections and start to form a community is to get involved with a student organization. So there are over 1,600 student organizations at the University of Michigan, including many that have a cultural focus, including these examples that we have displayed on the slide. Now, this list is not complete. There are many culturally focused organizations on campus that could be a really great way to meet other people from your home country. But if you do, identify with one of these organizations listed on the slide, once these slides are sent to you, I would recommend, clicking on the link and seeing how you might be able to get involved. Beyond these organizations, we recommend searching May's Pages, which is the directory where all student organizations that are registered with the University of Michigan have a page. So you would click on that link, May's Pages, and you can search either by the type of the organization, like the theme or the name. And once you do that, you'll see information about how to get in, how to contact the organization if you do wish to get involved. The best thing about this is if you can't find an organization that really that goes along with your interest, or if you have a passion about something and there's not currently a student organization that fits your needs, you can actually start a student organization. And that's also a really great leadership opportunity that would be great to talk about, in future interviews for internships and jobs. So keep that in mind as well. There's really something for everyone. And especially for the graduate students on the line, I want to mention that a lot of graduate departments have student organizations that are especially for students within that department. So keep in mind that that is a possibility, and look into those opportunities as well. Some benefits of getting involved. I already mentioned potential leadership opportunities, which is great for career development. It's also a really great way to make friends outside of the classroom, and an opportunity to gain really practical skills, such as time management, working on a team, communicating across cultures. All those things are really valuable skills for later on. And then the last thing that you see on this slide is the International Student Council. So International Center Student Council, excuse me. So this is a group of undergrad and graduate students, primarily international students, who are really interested in examining issues that impact international students on campus. And so they help to identify issues, and then also help the International Center kind of determine how to best address them. They also hold events throughout the academic year. At some point, there might be an opportunity for you to join the International Center Student Council. So if you're interested, keep an eye out for your emails, because we will advertise that opportunity through emails that go to all international students. Okay, great. So in addition to searching on the internet, at least in non-COVID times, there are two really large events that usually take place at the very beginning of September every year. And these are called Festifall and Northfest. So Festifall takes place all across Central Campus, and Northfest takes place on North Campus. And these are events where all student organizations have a table, and new students can walk around and meet people from all the student organizations and sign up to attend meetings. So it's a really fun event, very high energy. Because of COVID-19 and social distancing guidelines, this will likely not take place in person this fall, but it will hopefully be happening again, next year. So even if you're not able to go this year, something that you could look into attending your second year at Michigan. And then the Happening at Michigan website is a resource that I want to mention. So this is where you can get an idea for all the different events that are taking place throughout the University of Michigan campus. So even though Ann Arbor is a fairly small city, the university brings many amazing events and speakers to campus, including renowned speakers, musicians, and artists from around the world. So there really is something for everyone, and that's a great website to look at to search for opportunities. Next slide. So even though you haven't even started studying at, I think we went one too far. Perfect. So even though your studies haven't quite started at Michigan, I'm sure many of you are starting to think about future internships and career opportunities, and you're wondering what sort of resources are available at Michigan. Well, rest assured, the University of Michigan does have a lot of resources available to students who are searching for internships and future career opportunities, including multiple career services offices. So on the slide here, the career services offices link actually links to multiple offices, so you can get an idea of which ones exist on campus. But the University Career Center is one for all students. The LSA Opportunity Hub is especially for LSA undergraduate students. And many of our graduate programs have, specialty career services offices as well. The International Center also supports students who are looking into careers in the future. So the bullet points that you see on the slide here about finding internships, understanding U.S. workplace culture, alumni career panels, these are all organized by the International Center, and you'll receive emails about those throughout the academic year. And then one tip that we just want to highlight here is that it's really important to be very proactive when it comes to looking into and thinking about your future career. So we would recommend not waiting until the very last semester you're at the University of Michigan to visit the Career Center. In fact, we would recommend going right away, right when you start to meet with an advisor, to start to think about what should you be doing now at the beginning of your academic career to prepare for that time later when you're going to be applying for jobs. So shifting gears a little bit, orientation. So because we have so many schools and colleges at the University of Michigan, we're really decentralized, and you've probably heard this already. This actually applies to orientation as well. So for the graduate students on the line, if your department is part of the Rackham Graduate School, you can expect to attend the Rackham Fall Virtual Orientation, which is linked here on this slide. If your department is not part of Rackham, then you can expect to be attending events that will be planned by your school or college. For undergraduate students on the line, you'll be attending a Wolverine online orientation, and if you click on that link, eventually you can get more information about that. Now, to supplement those orientations and to meet the needs of incoming international students, the International Center also offers a really comprehensive orientation programming addressing a wide range of needs. So, for example, we have sessions on driving rules in the United States. What do you need to do if you're stopped by a police officer? What to do if you're involved with an accident? There's a session on legal issues so that you can have a better understanding of what exactly is legal and illegal here in the United States. And some of those laws might differ from your home country. For example, in the United States, the drinking age is 21, and that might be different in your home country. There are also sessions on, cultural differences in the classroom, how to communicate with academic advisors, managing stress, cultural adjustment, how to make friends, finding a job on campus, just to name a few. So you'll see the full list when everything is available, but these are non-mandatory, so you will not be required to attend them, but we do highly recommend that you check them out because we will be covering so many really important topics for new international students. In non-COVID times, all those sessions would be in person, and then we also have a lot of social events that we plan as well. However, due to coronavirus, our orientation will also be virtual this year. So keep an eye out on your email. We'll be sending out more information when those resources are available. In addition to the workshops, this year, due to our virtual environment, we have a new event called Ask Me, which is a virtual chat and an opportunity to talk with a current international student about life at the University of Michigan. So those are taking place throughout the summer. And if you click on that Ask Me link, you'll be able to see information about our next one, which is taking place later in July. And then the last thing on the slide is that throughout orientation, there will be opportunities for you to do virtual chats with our orientation peer advisors. And the peer advisors are current University of Michigan international students who are undergrads and graduate students who are really excited to welcome you all to the Wolverine family. And then in addition to orientation, the International Center also plans many events that take place throughout the academic year. Some are purely social and allow you to make friends, and then others really cover very important educational topics for international students. So we've listed some examples on this slide. Again, this is not an exhaustive list, but a couple things I want to point out. We hold a Lunch and Learn series, which is a really cool event that covers hot topics or important topics in U.S. culture and allows international students and scholars a space to ask questions and to learn about those topics. One example is that we recently held a Black Lives Matter Lunch and Learn, so students could learn more about that movement in the United States. There's also a Meet, Eat, and American Life Meal at Michigan program, which is really cool. It matches up international students with faculty and staff on campus who would like to have you over for dinner once during this semester. So that's a cool program, although due to coronavirus, it probably won't be happening this fall, but hopefully we'll be able to have it up and running again in the winter term. We'll see. So again, we send out emails about all these events, so please pay attention to your email, and we hope to see you at these events. And I should also say, even in the virtual environment, we are going to continue holding these sorts of events to the extent possible. So even if you won't be joining us here on campus in the fall, you can still log into some of these events and meet people, and we would encourage you to do that. And then this last slide is basically a collection of really helpful links that summarizes a lot of the topics that my colleague Kelly and I have talked about today. So we would encourage you, once you have access to this PowerPoint, to click around and see what information you want to know more about, and hopefully you'll be able to get the answers to a lot of your questions using these links. All right, and that brings us to the end of our presentation. I know we're a few minutes early, or excuse me, over, and I apologize for that. A few things. So my colleague Kate just put a link to our feedback survey in the chat. So we would definitely encourage you and would be so appreciative if you could spend just a couple of minutes filling out the feedback survey. This is the first year that we've done these virtual pre-departure orientations, and so we want to know from you what you thought and how we can improve it for the future. If you have your phone in front of you, you can also scan the QR code and access the feedback survey that way. And yeah, I think again, I know we're over, but if we can try to maybe address a couple more questions, if there are any things that maybe Scott or Jake or Kate have seen in the Q&A and want to address before we close today. Does anyone want to bring up any questions or final thoughts before we close? Scott?
Sure.
Or Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll just try to bring up a couple of questions that were asked multiple times. One is a few international students asked if they will have to leave the country after the November 30th deadline when in-person classes end and remote instruction begins. So will they have to leave the country from November 30th to the beginning of winter semester?
So it's our interpretation right now that no, they would not have to leave the country after in-person classes end on November 20th. So what we will have to do is update our operational plan with SEVP. We have to do that by August 1st. That shift will be a planned shift within the semester, and it will be included in our operational plan. We assume that there will not be any questions about that, which would mean that it's been approved. We're interpreting the guidance to be that if for some reason the University of Michigan needs to close all in-person classes and move everything online before that planned break for the Thanksgiving holiday, that is when the guidance would be implemented. If that's the case, then we would be encouraging students to go home. We would have to update our operational plan to state that we're now fully online. And if they are able to return home, then they could continue to remain in their courses, and we could continue to remain or keep their CVIS records active, because the institution at that point in time would be fully online, and the guidance allows students who are enrolled full-time in online classes and are outside of the country to maintain their status. So we would have to kind of follow that guidance, but at this point in time, the only way that the institution will do that is if there is a severe outbreak in the area locally for the COVID-19. So it's not likely that we would have to do that. And we do not think that any international students need to leave once we go on break for Thanksgiving.
Scott, I'm noticing several questions about the late arrival letter. I think there might be some confusion around that. Would you be able to speak a little bit about
Yep.
how students can request that? And
Yep.
Okay, thank
So
you.
if you're able to get your visa and you just can't get here right at the beginning of the semester, you're going to miss a week or two. You will want to contact your office, your admissions office, whether that's Rackham or undergraduate admissions or Ross or pharmacy or law school. It doesn't really matter, but you want to contact your admissions office, see how late you can arrive with a late arrival letter, because each department will have a slightly different deadline for you to arrive on campus with a late arrival letter. Essentially, once you get the late arrival letter, you'll already normally have your visa in hand. This is really documentation that you can keep with you if you are questioned about it at the border. And so at the border, they may question why you're arriving late. You would then be able to present that letter to the border officials to document that the university is aware that you are arriving after the start of the semester and we're permitting you to enter late. If you're not able to come within the first couple of weeks, then you're going to have to defer. We have CVIS reporting deadlines, and we have to update every student's CVIS record within the first 30 days of the semester for new and continuing students. And so if you're not able to arrive by the late arrival, we're going to have to defer your start date on your I-20. So you will want to be in contact with your admissions office to let them know if you're not able to do the late arrival, when are you able to defer, and when do you think you would be able to arrive on campus, or when would you like to arrive on campus?
All right, another question is, this might be specifically for incoming transfer students, but how would an incoming transfer student deferring, how would that influence their existing F1 visa status?
It's a good question. We're not sure. It won't influence your current visa. So if you have a valid visa and your visa is valid for another 3 years, it should not impact your current visa. What we're unsure about is whether or not the government will allow us to defer your current CVIS record, or if we would have to create a new I-20 for you. The guidance that was issued is not clear on that. They have not really indicated what they're going to allow. This all comes down to something called the 5-month rule. If you're out of the country for more than 5 months, the government typically requires us to issue you a new I-20. However, the government suspended that this March. The new guidance doesn't address it, so we're not sure if it's still suspended and we can just defer your dates on your I-20s like we were able to do for summer, or if we are going to have to issue you a new I-20. So I can't give you a definitive answer other than it shouldn't impact your visa. It's just a matter of what do we need to do in order to update your I-20. And hopefully we'll have that information from the government in the near future.
There's a question related to students' concern about the ability not be able to travel due to flight restrictions.
So there's a number of challenges for students currently outside of the country. The first is that there's no visa processing at this point in time. The second challenge that affects a lot of our students are the travel restrictions. So currently, the travel restrictions for China, pretty much all of Europe, Brazil are still in place. So if you are present in one of those countries affected by the travel restrictions, you effectively need to go to a third country for 14 days in order to then be admitted to the US. So for instance, if you're a student in China, you need to go to a third country right now for 14 days before you are able to travel to the US. And the way the government interprets the 14 days is 14 full days. So your travel day to that country and your travel day from that country don't necessarily count. So that's something you need to pay attention to. The third thing is the number of flights. As we all are aware, even if you are able to travel internationally without any restrictions from one country to another, there are limited flights available. In some cases, those flights are quite expensive. So international students, unfortunately, have a lot of things that they need to be aware of and potentially work around. I can't tell you whether or not it's worth it for you to try and go to a third country if you're subject to one of the travel restrictions. I would not be assuming that they will be lifted by the time that you are able to travel here for the start of the fall semester. So I would assume that you're going to need to factor that into your decision, whether or not you wish to try and do so. That's going to be expensive to travel to another country and to stay there for 2 weeks and then travel to the US. It may be more prudent for you to think about deferring your immigration paperwork to January and then enrolling in online classes for the fall, so that by January you would have your visa, there would be more flights available, and the travel restrictions would be lifted, hopefully. So you do want to pay attention to that. It is a very difficult situation. We're doing what we can to advocate for international students, and we're working through government channels, our professional organizations, the associations that the University of Michigan is aware of. And we will be joining the lawsuit, the amicus brief that Harvard and MIT filed. So we are doing whatever we can. We're aware that this is the guidance and the current restrictions are being very hurtful for our students, and we're doing everything we can in order to try and make sure that we can get you guys here as quickly and as safely as possible.
There's another question about when students arrive, can they come directly to campus, or do they have to stay for 14 days and quarantine in a hotel somewhere before coming to campus?
I don't think that that's been fully decided yet. So until the university comes out with some type of guidance on whether or not they need to quarantine, whether or not they're going to continue to follow the CDC guidelines that are still in place. We do know that during the winter semester and for spring summer, they were still recommending anyone, not even just international students, but anyone coming from overseas to self-quarantine. They did have rooms set up within housing. So a block of housing is being set up for students that do need to quarantine or self-quarantine for COVID cases. Whether or not those are going to be readily available at the beginning of the fall semester, I'm not sure. I would expect that the university will issue some type of statement and guidance on whether or not international students have to self-quarantine when they come into the country. And that'll probably happen within the next week or two, would be my guess.
Students are living in residence halls, I'd also just recommend that they contact the housing office because they may have information that we don't have right now, and can link you information, or at least let you know as soon as possible. I'm assuming if you have a contract to live on campus this semester, housing will send very detailed information about the move-in process. And I think they may even be considering assigning move-in times and special procedures for moving into your residence hall. So contact housing if you have questions about that, and pay attention to your emails because I'm sure they'll be sending that out, hopefully, like Scott said, within the next few weeks. All right. We are about 15 minutes over, so I think, like Scott mentioned, what we'll do is we're going to copy the questions that were all asked today, and upload answers to those that we maybe didn't get to, and we will post them on the website with the slideshow and the recording. So as soon as those are available online, we will send an email out to everyone who registered, so that you can access those at any time. We want to thank you all for joining. I know it might be very late for some people or very, very early. So thank you again for joining us. And if you have some time, please complete the survey so that we can improve this for future orientations that we host.
I
Thank
have
you,
just a
everyone,
quick
for joining.
note. Oh,
Yes,
sorry to interrupt.
No.
I noticed a couple people are saying that they're having trouble accessing the link that we sent out for the survey. So you'll be receiving another email from us to follow up after this presentation, and the link will be in there too, and hopefully it will work. We'll double check before sending it out. So thank you for letting us know about those challenges. So with that, thank you everyone for attending. We hope to see you soon.
Yep, thank you for attending. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.